Welcome to the Live at the Counts Q&A with our special guests, Fem Belling and Ben Hanlon. Thank you both so much for an incredible performance.
Thanks, Chelsea, and thank you so much, Ben.
Thank you, Fem. It was a pleasure.
We've got some questions coming up from our audience, but I've got one for you. I wanted to ask you a little bit about jazz. You're a trained violinist, trained ballerina, music theatre superstar, but I've heard you say that jazz is part of your blueprint. What does jazz mean to you?
Well, I grew up in a jazz family. My mum was a flamenco dancer and my father, Howard, is a jazz pianist. And so I was never going to be a jazz musician. Like, that was for sure. I was going to do something else. I didn't want to do it with my parents. Like, oh my God, I can't do what my parents did. My brother is also a jazz bass player, and so there was this thing that happened. I was like, I will not, and I will go and do ballet, and I will be in musicals. And look what happened. Look what happened. The blueprint, it's in there. It's in the blueprint. So I feel like the language of jazz is inside there, no matter what the external influences are. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Howie. Thanks, Dad.
I love it.
Thanks, Dad.
So I want to ask you about performing for Her Majesty the Queen, which is on your bio.
It is.
What did you perform? What was this like?
So can I stand up and actually? I've got a little story that is attached to this.
Yeah, please.
Which I don't know if I've ever extended. No. So I don't know if we've got room. So when you perform at the Royal Variety Show, then as we know, there's lots of protocol. Okay, there's a lot of protocol that happens. Yep. You are told, you finish your number. You're told to thank the audience, and you have to turn to the royal box and thank. And at the end of the entire night, Her Majesty comes down and meets everyone who's performed. And there's zillions of us. There's very, like famous people. And anyway, I was in Hairspray at the time, and we performed for Her Majesty Weekend. And just to set it up, Hairspray, we had these crazy wigs that they used bird cages and wrapped them in fake hair so that we could still dance, being so. And so there I am wearing what I can only describe as a blancmange. It is a bright pink dress with puffy sleeves, and I'm there, and Her Majesty is coming, and we were told you cannot engage her. You can't be like, "Hi, how are you?" She has, should she wish to talk to you, she will engage you, and then you're to curtsy and say, "Ma'am," and and anyway, she's making her way down. She's spending a lot of time with Seal and John Bon Jovi, because you would,
right.
And she eventually gets, and she starts to get to the Hairspray cast with Michael Bolton at this outrageous thing, and she gets to the front of me, and she's tiny, and she's got this lady in waiting, and she's just amazing. Like, she's exactly what you think royalty is going to be like. She's tiny as well, and there's jewels, and she looks up at my hair and goes, "Is that heavy?" And I'm like, curtsy and say, "Ma'am." And so with my huge beehive, what do I do to the Queen in front of me? I didn't connect with her, but I never got to talk to her because she was ushered away, treason. So that's what it was like performing at the Royal Variety Show. So I had to phone my mum and my dad and tell them I didn't get to talk to the Queen.
And how did that contrast to your halftime performance at the MCG for the NRL final?
I'm sure I had, I think, oh no, I'm going to embarrass myself entirely. What's the black and white team? Collingwood. You see, I grew up in so Collingwood was playing, so I think there would have been headbutting at that game too. It was with the Public Opinion Afro Orchestra, and we, it was freezing and amazing. And I don't think I realised the gravity of actually playing at the MCG in halftime. I mean, I called it interval, for goodness sake. It was very soon after I arrived in this country, and I didn't realise how important the football was here. And I know from you how important the football is.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
a religion.
Yeah, it's
And
it's
we
a big
finally
thing.
won.
I know.
So as a Melbourne Demon supporter, highlight of lockdown.
We're going to go to an audience question. Dayu says, thanks for an amazing concert. And she'd like to ask you when she might be able to hear them play live and in person.
Yes, Day, that is a great question. The question we've all been wanting. At the moment, we don't have any gigs booked in because we're waiting for all of this crazy to settle down and settle. But the best way to find out is on our social medias. You can follow Fem Belling, and the minute we have a gig, I'll be shouting it from the rooftops. Either on Instagram or Facebook. It's kind of the currency now. That's how you find out what's going on with everything.
Yes,
And
please
Ben
do
Hanlon,
follow the
same
social media.
kinda?
Yep.
Yep.
Ben Hanlon. In terms of hearing just me without Fem, which might be less appealing, but I'm playing with James Sherlock, who actually played here last week in our album launch on the 28th of November at the Jazz Lab. So it'd be great to see you there.
Yes,
I
I
will
actually had a
be-
question about that. Can you tell us a little bit about the album?
Yes, I can. So James Sherlock is a fabulous guitarist, and I play double bass, and we'd played together in a number of different ensembles and things over the years, and we sort of started a duo project. We had a first album with the very creative title Duo, and then more recently we were exploring arranging classical pieces for the duet and really fell in love with arrangements of Stravinsky, and so we wrote suites on both The Rite of Spring and Petrushka, and there's a couple of other tunes on there, and that became this album that we're very proud of. And I mean, like most things over the last couple of years, it's been much delayed, and so therefore much anticipated, and it will finally be out in the world in November.
Yeah, I'm so excited and happy for you that it's finally coming out. Because I remember last time you played here at the Counts, you were just about to do the launch
Yes.
that had already been rescheduled, and now it's rescheduled again, but it's
Yes.
definitely happening. And the name of the record is
Stravinsky.
Stravinsky
we're
by
very
Ben
creative with
Hanlon,
our titles.
James Sherlock.
And
Check it
can you
out.
tell them someone very marvelous bought the album?
Yeah, Matt Groening seems to have bought our album, which was quite bizarre.
The Simpsons?
Amazing.
I know.
Incredible. Another audience question here. Ellie says, wow, such a broad and mixed repertoire. How often do you add new songs to your set list, and how does the inspiration for new songs come to you?
Yeah. My upbringing in South Africa infuses a lot of my creative choices. I grew up in a tumultuous time politically, and I got to experience the music that changed a nation, that the soundtrack to a changing nation, being inside it. And a lot of that South African repertoire feeds into what I do and how I play. And often my Shazam is working overtime. I'll be out somewhere and I'll be listening to something, or a series will come along, and I thinking outside of the range of standards. And it's also very much like going to my wardrobe and opening it up and there being 72 dresses, and I'm like, I've got nothing to wear. A lot of the time, I don't have any standards to play, I don't have any repertoire. I think there's an art to playing something over and over and over and still finding the joy in that. And tonight's repertoire was purely, I just had Ben in my head and I was like, how many luscious bows can I give him? So yeah, but it's a great question, Ellie.
I wanted to ask you about a project that you've been working on throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, which is your solution to live music. So even in the depths of lockdown, there was some live music joy throughout the suburbs. The Bandwagon, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Charles, one night, down half a bottle of gin with my other half, Casey, turned to him and went, why do we have to wait for a venue? Can't we just bring music to the people? And a idea formed, and we have modified a vintage ute and turned it into a pop-up jazz club. So the back of the ute is the flat tray, and we can pop up anywhere, and we have been making music on the fly, on the run, curbside, picnic side. I reckon that could be our next gig. That's a good one. Yeah, that's a great one in
Just
a
take
park.
it around Preston.
Check out the Bandwagon, also on Instagram. John wants to know, Fem, when did you leave South Africa and go to London?
I didn't leave South Africa directly. I was in the musical Cats, and Cats was the first international musical that came to South Africa once artistic sanctions had been lifted. And so it was the first major musical that had come out of South Africa, and because our currency was worthless, they thought they would tour the South African cast because it was very financially viable. And so I was touring the world in Cats, and I jumped ship. Well, I fell in love with a boy. And he was in my cast, and he was British, and he was from London, and he went, just come on over. And so I ended up in London after about 4 years of touring Cats.
I've got a specific question here about your violin. Kevin says, Fem, I've never seen you play a violin in its original form. Why the preference for these skelly ones?
Skelly ones. Kevin. Interestingly, I had a time where I didn't enjoy playing the violin. I didn't enjoy the sound of the violin. I can't say that I love the sound of the violin, but it is my instrument. And when I discovered 5-string violins, it changed everything because it has a low C string, which makes it a viola and a violin, and it brings out a warmth in the sound. And I haven't really found a great acoustic violin 5-string that I like to play. So these electric ones don't need much resonance. This is a Yamaha silent violin. It doesn't need much resonance, so it's okay to add on an extra string and make the fingerboard thicker. But I'm definitely open to acoustic violins that are 5-string that sound good. Yeah.
Okay.
I like the Skelly.
Yeah, well, it sounds great.
Sideways.
I love it. Got one more question for you. In terms of your collaborations, you share an ARIA nomination with the Public Opinion Afro Orchestra, but a recent release that you feature on is Z6, which I know is a project led by your brother, Bass Z. And you're doing a special show with that project coming up soon. Can you tell us a bit about the record? It's quite a special one.
I am unbelievably proud to be a part of that project. Zvi has Z6, well, his ZVI in Roman numerals is Z6. So he has spent years working on a global cast, a global band. The guest artists on this record are outrageous. Pooji Bell, who is the drummer for Erica Badu. We have Keon Harold, Emmanuel Harold. We have... it's huge. We have so many incredible Australian artists. John McCall is on it. Minnie Yu is on it. We have DJs and rappers. And what he has done is he's taken the golden era of hip-hop and turned it back into a jazz format. So those hip-hop tracks used to sample jazz tracks. You know, they'd sample Herbie Hancock and Miles Davis, and then they'd make a tune, and we've put it back. And it is truly mind-blowingly good, this album, and we launch it on Thursday at the Nightcat.
I really wanted to mention that because your vocals on that record are phenomenal, and it's one of the most exciting jazz records, I think, to come out of Australia for quite some time. It's a really great record, so huge congrats to Zvi and yourself and everyone involved. But that wraps up Live at the Counts for this edition with Fem Belling and Ben Hanlon. But hey, we'll be back again next Wednesday night, and the exciting thing is not only will be live streaming the first set, but you can actually book a table, buy some tickets, and come and join the party here. For the first time in such a long time, we'll have a live audience for Live at the Counts. We're super excited. So until next week, stay kind, be safe, and good evening. Thank you for joining our Live at the Counts concert series. We'd like to say thank you to Monash University Performing Arts Centre's technical crew and staff for their incredible work. For information on future shows and more extraordinary live performances, follow @Monash PAC.